Today is December 5th. The Golden at Bat conversation is hot. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this, and we'll share ours, as well as some thoughts on pitchers and a new trend we're seeing. You're listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Yins guys, thank you for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast, where we talk all about them Pittsburgh Pirates and that. My name is Josh. That guy right there's name is Jake. What's up, Jake?
How we doing, man?
We're doing all right. I've got a Boylan's cream soda again tonight. We're gonna crack open.
Got a frosty root beer,
There you go.
courtesy of Five Below.
Five Below. Rocking the frosty. That's all right.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Just how I remember it. I haven't had a frosty in a long time. It's
Yeah.
been a minute.
Yeah.
So, I got a short story for you.
Okay.
Battery went dead in my car this week. Couldn't get to work. The wife had to take me. So I'm not dealing with it. I'll go get one. After I get a couple days off. So I went and picked up a battery, come home, go to change it. Get it, everything unconnected. Listen, I'm not a mechanic, but I know how to change out a battery. Okay. Let's just start there.
Okay.
So I get everything disconnected. I go to pull the battery out, wouldn't budge. So then I had to look way down. There's another bolt way down in there. I had to get to it because it's the little clamp that holds it in place.
Gotcha.
So I'm like, oh, I got a bit for that. So I'm trying to get it out of the little case. It wouldn't come out. Pop it. It flies up, lands in my engine compartment, and just disappears. Still don't know where it is, but I'm driving my car around.
Interestingly enough, I'm getting new tires, and they called and they said, "Hey, we could see the wires in your tires, bro. The heck's wrong with you?" He said they were very unsafe for you to be driving on these. This is a bad look, right? But then they were like,
Yeah.
Also, what's that thing that your battery has? It's like a C something or other. This is how bad it is. Anyway, somebody knows it. I know it. Like, I've seen this a million times in my life. I just can't think of it right now. It's like I don't know.
The core pack or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. He's like, it's supposed to be firing 650. It's firing like 67. He's like, I don't even know how your car's starting.
And then now you're driving it around on those tires.
I was like, bro, just change the battery out. Just change the tires out. We're okay.
Here's my problem. So I get in the car, I start it, I get the remote, right? You get the key fob, and it comes up on my dashboard, key fob battery low. Why can't you tell me my car battery's low?
Yeah. Oh, I get the key fob thing all the time.
Dead.
I wonder if it's the battery that actually is causing the key fob thing. That's what I've been wondering. We got baseball to talk about, man. We got baseball to talk about.
Sorry.
Hey, Doug Smith's in here. Keith, what's up, guys? Appreciate you being here live. Doug, by the way, says getting Kris Kringle vibes from Uncle Jake tonight. Will I see him in the mail soon? So
At the mall,
that wouldn't be the first time Jake's got that. He does have a bit of he's got a bit of a Kris Kringle look to him with the beard and the way that his cheeks pop a little bit. It's not the first cheeks. Time. Yep. Yeah. Mall. I said male. Mall. Yeah, I read that wrong.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doug. Jake got me too.
And Doug, I tell you, when the beard goes white, sign me up.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's dude, they pay good money. Let's go.
Anything for more money.
$100 an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So obviously we're going to talk about the Golden at Bat. That's the thing that's being talked about everywhere. Right. And so, you kind of talk about this a little bit. You and I, actually, we haven't had much of a chance to talk this week, but this is one of those things where I'd be like, are we going to do this or are we just going to skip over this and do something else? But the thing is like, it's literally everywhere. And so I feel like we're going to also I don't want to just not talk about it. So we're going to talk about the Golden at Bat. We're going to talk a little bit about pitching. Maybe we'll start with that and then move into something else. But essentially, this should be a good conversation coming off of the heels of the conversation that we just had Sunday about rules and about some of the rule changes that have been made. And then Monday rolls around and old Bobby Manfred,
dang it, Bobby,
has to open his mouth and say that they're talking about this thing. And so we're just going to we're going to have a little conversation about it.
There's buzz, right?
Buzz. Yeah. There's some buzz. Pit City What says Santas make more money than the Pirates players. Oh, if so, sign me up too. But anyway, hey, Isaac Mattson back and signed a minor league deal. I imagine Hunter Stratton follows pretty soon, right?
Sure.
So, all right. Around the league, though, there's been a couple things. So, first off, Aroldis Chapman, $10.75 million to sign with the Red Sox. Is this something you felt like the Pirates missed out on bringing him back? Or, like, how do you take this? Because I've seen some people saying, like, we lost Chapman. And I was like, well, we lost Chapman 3 days after the World Series. We didn't just now lose Chapman. He wasn't ours anymore. He was a free agent. Right. So there is a little bit of that. But like, how do you feel about, like, should the Pirates have gone through and brought him back for $10.75 million?
I just think that's just, and I know we just paid him 10, right? But I just
10.5.
Yeah. So I still don't know that they were even trying. I don't know. We sure could use that lefty in the bullpen.
Yeah, but I gotta feel like you could probably get 2 for that price.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we talked about this last year when they signed Chapman to a $10.5 million contract. We're like, kind of crazy.
A little later though in the off season, so it kind of felt like, hey, we got to do something.
Yeah, yeah.
But now it's like we've got the whole off season ahead of us.
Yeah, and if the Angels don't sign everybody before anybody else gets to, then
right,
there'll be people to sign.
So one thing that I've seen, so Chapman, he had a pretty good year last year, 3.7 something ERA, struck out a ton of guys still. He's still pumping 104. He struggled with walks at times, but I feel like that's Chapman. So he had a pretty good year.
Yeah.
Not quite a Jeff Hoffman year, and I'll get why it's important to bring him up. But maybe about a Clay Holmes year. Mixed bag, struggled a little bit at times, was elite in the 7th inning. Mm-hmm. But, you know, how that was Holmes' story, but now Holmes is getting some interest as a starting pitcher, Jake.
Yeah. So I've heard some talks about this, right? And I forget who it was, Plesac maybe. It's those guys, sometimes they have trouble finding the strike zone as starters. They go to the bullpen and they know, like, I don't have the luxury of pitching around guys. Like, I have to go at them full go right at these guys. And sometimes that can unlock the potential to go back to the starting rotation. And sometimes they try to go back and it still just doesn't work. So,
right.
I get that thought process and everything. It is, you know, Clay Holmes was a starter his whole minor league career.
They all were though, Jake. You know what I mean? Like Chapman was. You know what I mean? So like outside of Houston Street and Joyce, dude, that throws 150. You know what I mean? Like most of these guys were starters.
Yeah.
And so we understand that. Hey, we've got 2 elite pitchers. We've got nothing else. Which is why some people have even said that about Jared Jones, that eventually he's a reliever. And I'm like, he's still too young. He's going to be able to learn other pitches. And he's good enough with those 2 pitches that he actually should be able to be okay. But the kind of the idea is like when they find that out early, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, okay, he can probably do a different mix. I mean, it worked well for Reynaldo Lopez It worked fine for Garrett Crochet, although Crochet probably in another echelon of talent level, right? But still hasn't been a starter. Michael Lorenzen, Nick Martinez. There was another guy, Jordan Hicks, who converted to a starter and went out and did this. And they're doing the new pillow contract, where you sign 2 years, but it has an opt-out. And so you get a certain amount. But the thing is, Jake, is a high-end reliever is going to make $10.75 million. And I'm looking around the league at starters, and I'm seeing Frankie Montas and Matthew Boyd making $15-17 million a year. Now, in perspective, Matthew Boyd could be a good pitcher, but the last time he had more than 80 innings, like he had 78 one year, and even that year, I don't think was phenomenal, but like the last time he had a bulk of innings over 100, he had 185 innings, and what was the ERA? We talked about it. It was like a 4. It was over a 4.5.
There was like there was 3 straight years where he had over 150, and it was like a 5.7, a 4.4, and then like a 4.8 or something like that.
Right. So that's what you're getting. Let's say a 4.5. Now, he may have figured some stuff out. He had some injuries. He still hasn't put up a body of work, which we know that starting pitchers, it should be like volume is important. You get paid for volume, which is why starters make more than relievers. But you're telling me that if you're an elite reliever, or at least borderline, let's talk about borderline for Chapman, a borderline elite reliever, you're going to make less than 11, and then a meh to average starter who's going to have a 4.5 to a 5 ERA is going to make $17 million, because Frankie Montas hasn't done anything good since he left Oakland.
Yeah.
And so you've got Matthew Boyd, who has no body of work in the last 3 years. And you've got Frankie Montas, who's basically like a 4.5 at best in the last 3 years. And these guys are getting 15 to 17 million. If I'm Clay Holmes, I'm going to be a starter too, because I could be kind of crappy and still make more money than being really great at the back end of a bullpen. Jeff Hoffman, same thing, dude. Go get it. We were talking about possibly signing Jeff Hoffman for like 3 years, 11 mil a year. We thought he was going to be that good. And now it's like, okay, he can just go be a starter, which he didn't do well at before, and go make $15 to $17 million a year. Yes, everybody's going to do. And if it doesn't work, that's cool. I'll make $15 million back in the bullpen dominating.
Yeah.
And the thing is like 180 is the new 220. You don't face a lineup the third time through. So a lot of these teams are like, well, I mean, we're only going to throw him twice through the lineup, and that's a good starting pitcher in these days. So let's try him out at that.
Yeah.
It's a little bit frustrating for me.
Yeah. With
I don't know how to, I don't know what you do about it.
With good reason.
I don't know what you do about it. I don't know how you fix it, but it is kind of like, hey, I guess coming from the standpoint that we are, it's like, oh, the Pirates are looking for bullpen arms, and all the bullpen arms are becoming starting pitchers and making more money than what we're willing to offer for a reliever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I mean, guess it comes from that. I don't know.
We don't do anything to fix it. We don't.
Right.
The only thing that can happen, like I keep wanting to say, the only thing that can happen is quit paying these pitchers.
Yeah. Well,
$15 to $17 million.
It's the going rate
Pay him
right
8
now.
to 12. Right. But I get the going, it can go backwards. Almost impossible. Almost impossible.
And I don't know where I'm at with all that, but you're right. Something has to happen. But it does kind of feel like there was some targets out there, and they're all just going to be starting pitchers. So what do you get for the bullpen? Well, this is a good question. Dave White says, how much is Tanner Scott going to get? I mean, maybe he's going to be a starter, Dave. Pretty soon we're going to get something out and says Tanner Scott's getting some interest as a starting pitcher. And then it's going to be like, well, there went that one too. He's probably going to get $12 to $13 million. He's really good. So I don't know, man. It's real interesting. So I don't know. Who's next, I guess? Well, we saw there was one guy too. Michael Soroka. He was only really moved to the bullpen for 1 year. That's kind of probably, I chalk that up as like, hey, you're struggling, but we still think we can get something out of you back here. You can go back to being a starter next year, which I feel like that's
regroup,
go be a starter again. You've been a starter for a long time. So I think that makes sense. I don't have an issue with that. And I don't really have an issue with this either, right? I mean, you're smart. If you're going out there and saying, let me be a starter, that, go do it.
You're utilizing resources. You're, supply, demand stuff, all that.
Yeah.
Economy garbage.
So one last thing on this and we'll move on to the Golden at Bat. I got one last thing here. How about, excuse me. Let's talk about like a guy like Ashcraft or Burroughs, right? If those guys are on the outside looking in, but we think they can actually help us in the bullpen, would you consider moving them to the bullpen? Even if it's like hey, you can give me 2 or 3 innings at a time to stay a little bit stretched out. But would you consider saying down the stretch, maybe, right? They're pitching in AAA, down the stretch. You need a bullpen arm. Do you consider throwing those guys in the bullpen? And then if it really works well, let's say for a guy like Ashcraft, he could pitch in the bullpen for a few years and be effective if we've got depth in the starting rotation. And it doesn't stop him from becoming a starter later. So is there a way the Pirates can say like, hey, listen, we really need bullpen help and you're a stud? Can you just go in our bullpen for a few years? Like, I promise you, look around the league. These guys can go right back to being a starter anytime they want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if it's an off season and we need a starter, like we'll just stretch out in the off season. We're fine. So I don't know, man. I kind of feel like at this point, when you've seen this many players do it, it's about time to start getting the best you can get on that roster at the major leagues, whether they're in the bullpen or starting. Get them there. Give them some experience.
I'm not even worried about, we'll throw you 2-3 innings at a time. I mean, sure, if the opportunity arises, but I mean, let's just get our best pitchers in Pittsburgh and run with it. I don't see a problem with it. It's like you said. I mean, they can go back to being a starter in a couple of years, or they could go into being a starter next year.
Yeah.
Literally any time.
Right. But it would be nice to be able to sit down and talk to your starters saying like, listen, I could keep you starting in AAA or you could be at the show right now.
Mm-hmm.
And any of those guys know that there's more money to be made in the bullpen at the show when you're still in your first few years than there is just pitching, starting in AAA. So
yeah,
I don't know, man. It does kind of interest me a little bit to say, well, how do we use this to our advantage in a way? And, how do we go there? Shared said Justin Wilson was a starter in the minors, but was brought up just because they needed a lefty reliever. Now, and that's the way it went back there, right? He made a whole career out of being a reliever, but there's a case that you could say, okay, but like in a couple of years, just go be a starter. Yeah. Because there's a precedent set for it now, and it's being like, when it came out, it wasn't Clay Holmes wants to be signed as a starter. It was Clay Holmes is drawing interest as a starter. So there's a little, now maybe he started that, but there's interest. So like, it's doable. Mm-hmm. It's doable. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So Ron, I see you're, you trade for Casas, sign O'Neill, and Conforto, go for it. I'm there, man. I get it. I see what you're saying. Now, winter meetings are coming. I know there's going to be some stuff talked about, right? There's already been some stuff where there's been actual, like Ken Rosenthal saying that the Pirates intend to use, Brian Reynolds at first base some this year. So he will get time. So that means they're open to it. They're going to do this. This is the first time we've actually heard from them that it's a real possibility, I think. So, we're working our way there. So we'll see.
I like Casas. I mean, if there's a chance we can get him, I'm in.
Okay. What if it's for Jared Jones?
It's a tough call to make. It's a tough call to make, but I think if you're willing you're willing to move for Casas, then you're willing to put your team in the best situation possible. And if
Yeah.
that means letting go of Jared Jones and bringing somebody else in to fill his shoes,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of get it.
I'm also seeing what some of these starting pitchers are making right now and knowing that in general, Jake, the Pirates are probably not going to sign a starting pitcher. Now, I understand that the Oakland A's just overpaid for Severino, and it's out there that it's an overpay, and everyone knows it's an overpay. But is it much different? There are maybe some guys that you'd have to overpay to come to Pittsburgh when they could have an offer from a team that's, supposed to be better. So I think there's something there. There sure are a lot of options both directions, but I'm kind of in that camp on both sides. Like, I could see it happening if it's the right offensive upgrade because we need that. But then there's also the idea where you're saying, but they're so expensive and I can't replace that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe I'm very hesitant to trade Jared Jones. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I just don't know, Ron, if Ortiz is going to bring you in Casas.
Well, I think it's a start. We know that Boston likes Ortiz. We've heard that. And so there is a chance, but it's going to be Ortiz and ... You know what I mean? So maybe Ortiz and Xander Muth or something like that, right? Or Meath, however, I forget how you say his name. But anyway. Yeah, I mean, it feels like that, man. But I got to hear you guys in the chat. I got to hear what you guys think about this. What's up, Jim? It's the talk of the town. It's the talk of everybody. And this golden at bat rule is, or should we say golden at bat conversation. It's at the conversation stage is what was said, right? And I just want to go back a little bit here, okay? David Sampson, former president of the Marlins, he does Nothing Personal with David Sampson. If you guys aren't familiar with that show, it's a podcast, it's a show, whatever, okay? And he brought this up in 2003 to that committee, to that room in 2003. It took 20 years for somebody to even admit it's a conversation. This is not only a long way out. And Katie just dropped her phone. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. Jeez. I hope that was what that was. I lost my train of thought. Oh, it took 20 years to get to this stage. If it ever comes, it's going to be another 10 years before they can ever change this thing to which by the way, nobody knows what it looks like. Nobody knows what this looks like, but we're all speculating. There's been a few things said, and Jason Stark wrote something in The Athletic that's really good about all this stuff. And it's, there's just ways that you can look at this. And we're going to talk about a bunch of the different ways because we talk about rules a lot here. That, we just do. Yeah. And we just had a whole episode where we talked about a ton of rules. And it's funny that we actually had a show where we decided that we would, kind of say that they haven't been that bad. And then this happens. As soon as we start to
like this.
Yeah, but except not redeem yourself.
Right.
So I don't know. Obviously there's been a lot of craziness. If you're not familiar with it, in a nutshell, the golden at bat is at any point in the game, a team could play their golden at bat card and your best player or anybody can basically pinch hit no matter what the situation is in that moment and hit for the person that's up. Even if they're in the lineup already. Like if you're batting third, you can pinch hit for the seventh hitter with that guy. Nobody's removed from the game. You just keep going.
So my first hole that I poke in this, right, is your third hitter is gonna. I'm gonna try to tweak this a little bit just to make make it a little bit easier
To explain.
makes sense a little easier. There we go. You're 8 hitters up, and you decide I'm gonna bat my leadoff hitter right now, Golden at bat, and he gets on base, and there's no outs. Your 9 hitter gets up. Are we gonna do a ghost runner for the leadoff hitter so he can come hit again?
Yeah.
Does you know what I mean? Like what there was somebody put a scenario out there that Mookie Betts is due up second to start the 9th, but we want him to bat first.
Mhm.
So you use your Golden at bat and you get Mookie Betts to lead off your inning for you.
Mhm.
Well, then what? That's
Mhm.
that's the first thought process is then what?
Yeah, we're going to go down a lot of that path tonight because first off, there are things that would account for that, but also they have to consider this, which is why I said when it gets in place or if it gets in place, these sort of things will be sorted out. And I've got some ideas on how they'll look out by some of the things I've read and by obviously sitting here and just thinking about this all the time. And we were a little bit fortunate this week. Sometimes I feel like it's unfortunate that we're a little further away from the news, like the day after we record. But this time I got to hear a lot of opinions.
Mhm.
I'm surprised that some of the people who are on board with this, Sean Casey included, was surprised about that. But there's a lot of things. I think, Jim, you guys brought up on yours that if you give Aaron Judge an extra 150 at-bats in a season against favorable matchups, not marquee matchups, but against a soft-throwing lefty, like he could hit 15, 25 home runs.
Yeah.
On top of that 60 home run year, and that's really messing things up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just messing it up. So here's what I'll say. As my opinion, and then we'll get into this conversation, but the pitch clock was brought in and we hated it. Then we watched the game with the pitch clock. And many of us said, oh, this kind of looks like the game I used to watch. The old game that I used to watch, the one I fell in love with. This looks more like that than what it did last year. So there was something restored there with this new rule. Let's talk about the bases. If that's really what caused people to steal more, well, they stole when I was a kid. Then they stopped stealing. We put pizza boxes on the field. They're stealing again. Right? So you've restored part of the game that existed before. The DH was like, it was already in baseball. It's not like there's any major change. I prefer the National League game, but you kind of got used to it because it's not like it was something you'd never seen before. We've been watching it our whole lives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You talk about some of these rules. Now, the Manfred runner is still, to me, too much of a fundamental change. And I'm even going to get into some things on that. But the rest of those rules that we've all hated at times were kind of like, okay, kind of made it better. Now, you could say that instant replay wasn't, but like that's not really a change to the game. We're just making sure we get the right call. Nothing was changed in the field of play other than now we hold the tag longer.
Right.
Other than now we try not to pop off the base, right? That's it.
Yeah.
And some of these like safety rules make sense when you think of them that way. It's like, oh, but we're just trying to be safer. What did we say on Sunday? It was legal to just throw at the batter until 1978 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, by the way, you can't intentionally hit the guy in 1978. So, you know what I mean? There's some safety things that can be put in place. But if you think back, like when Babe Ruth was hitting a bunch of home runs and the fans were loving it, then more guys tried to hit the ball harder instead of trying to avoid striking out. And they were like, oh, you mean striking out's not that big of a deal if I could just hit the ball far. And then you know what? They stopped using the same ball the whole game. They started throwing in new balls, so it was easier to hit it out late in the game. So like some changes are good and you can make changes to do this. To me, this one just goes too far. It doesn't fix a problem that we have.
Right.
Saying that Mahomes gets the ball at the end of the game in football and you pass it to Steph Curry at the end of the game in basketball, it doesn't do it for me because Mahomes can be tackled. It's like, yeah, we're going to give the at-bat to Judge, but hey, that guy over there can just hit him in the middle of the pitch. Like, you don't have something like that in baseball.
Yeah.
It's already manufactured naturally, not artificially. And the same thing, sure, Mahomes can get a chance, but if your line doesn't block, you technically don't get a chance.
Right.
And you could double Steph Curry. There's a penalty to that. Not a penalty, but like there's a risk to that because you're leaving somebody completely wide open to make that shot. Those games have such more of a team aspect that the batting order in baseball is the team aspect. It is a team full of individual efforts. If the ball's hit to the center fielder, you can't Zach Morris call pause and let somebody else come over and catch it. The center fielder has to catch it.
Right.
Or he'll drop it, right? Just like the 8th hitter will strike out if that's what happens. Or maybe Rajah Davis hits a home run and it's unbelievable. Maybe Bill Mazeroski hits a home run and he ends up in the Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of baseball. I think you're robbing a lot of that.
For sure.
So now that's my thoughts. You said yours. Let's just go ahead and say it, Jake, because you're a mad hater. This is Banana Ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll admit it. I'm not calling you out. You'll say you hate Savannah Bananas. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, you told me when we started talking about this earlier before the show, you're like, it's a Savannah Bananas rule. You know what I mean? I was like, no, I don't know what you mean.
Well, no, and that's not how I meant it, but anyway.
No, but I literally just, I don't.
Yeah. The Savannah Bananas in 2024, just this year, put the golden batter in place. And it's this. That's, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's it.
It's the
this is a Savannah Bananas.
This is.
Yeah. All right. So that's what we think it's going to look like, right?
Yeah.
Now let's talk about what. Let me see. Let me catch up over here because, man, I wrote some stuff down here. We brought up record books. We brought up all that stuff. That's good enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of this, let's talk about some of the things that we could see develop over time. We said this might show up somewhere around 10 years or something like that. And we could say, like, okay, as they talk, for the sake of conversation, what does this look like if they actually get it in place? Right? Mm-hmm. What could it possibly look like? Wait, from but Savannah Bananas, Doug. The thing is like, so let's take it back to the beginning of this conversation, right? We know, like, David Sampson is saying he brought this up in 2003. And they said, let's see if we can figure out any way to do this. How do we get our guys up in the big moment? So, like, this has been something that they've been talking about for a long time, or at least people have been thinking it.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of people who've said things here or there in different times to say things just like this, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to take the absolute dump. Like, it's never going to happen, right? In the form that we know, it's never going to happen. How could they take some of those things, like what you said, and say, okay, well, this is not ridiculous. You can't have a guy hit and then just turn around and hit again, right? What do you do with the base runner? What do you do with this, right? All those things. So here's a couple things. It's a swap. If you use the golden batter, you actually swap spots. I also think, Jake, about the scorebook. Like, how in the heck you can score this, right? So Aaron Judge is hitting third. Why don't we use the Pirates? This is a Pirates podcast. Let's use the Pirates, right? We know Reynolds is slotted in the 2-hole, right?
Yeah.
And we get Jack Sawinski up, and they've got a lefty in there. And I just went with Jack because clearly we know there's a struggle against lefties in the lineup, and he's a guy that, you know, we've seen in the past couple of years. So you say, all right, we're going to put in Reynolds in that place. You wouldn't use Cruz because it's also a lefty, right? So Reynolds is going to hit 7th. Let's say Jack's hitting 7th. Then the way the rule could work is that then Jack just goes to the 2-hole. So you're still kind of giving Reynolds an extra at bat there, but at least he's not getting another extra at bat. We're talking about the preserving the history and all that stuff, right? So it's a clean swap. So therefore he doesn't get back up. Right?
Right.
And if it's Mookie and he uses him there, then that guy just moves down to Mookie's spot, and then you've used your card to get Mookie up earlier, but that guy's still going to hit. So you wouldn't use him for the guy right in front of him if that was that wouldn't be your strategy.
Right.
But he still has to wait until that his time comes back around to the 7 spot for Reynolds to hit again. You know what I mean? Now, if you use it in the bottom of the 9th, it's still an advantage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You may not ever even realize that.
Yeah.
So that's the first one that I think is pretty easy. It would also limit the next thing that I'll bring up is you can't have back-to-back at bats. There's been a lot of people say, well, Ohtani hits and the pitcher makes the pitch of his life and fools Ohtani and he swings and misses down on his knee. And then you're like, as a pitcher, you're like, I did it. I got Ohtani out. There's now 2 outs. And then Dave Roberts goes, nah, you got Ohtani, try again. You can't have that.
Yeah.
That's absolutely never going to happen. Like, that's going to be a part of this rule that's going to say no, you had your chance. If the whole idea of this, Jake, is to get the marquee matchups, you already had that matchup. We don't need to see it again. That does not count.
Right.
Okay. So not available. No back-to-back. I would even say that the golden batter would even be limited to somebody who is not going to get a chance. So if there's nobody out, the leadoff hitter, he can't be in the hole or on deck. Those 2 guys are off limits. It can be anybody else. It could be even the guy right after him because he might not get a chance. This gives him a chance. If there's 1 out, just the guy on deck. You can do it with the guy on deck, but you can't go further than that. Right? And of course, if there's 2 outs, everybody's available. Unless you've already hit that inning. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of they're going to have to, because people are going to come up with these things. They're going to say, I'm not facing Ohtani twice. If you're going to put Ohtani in there twice, then now you have to cut the 3 batter limit off. And
I got to be able to change my pitcher.
I have to be able to change my pitcher. How many times are you going to be able to strike him out back-to-back times after he just saw 10 pitches?
Yeah.
He's got you now. You know what I'm saying? You ain't going to fool him again. And if you do, sure, it'd be crazy. But to me, that seems like it's got to be, it's easy. Like you swap. Okay, we're done. That's an easy thing. And then only certain people can be there. Nobody can bat twice in an inning. So if you've already hit and there's been 5 hitters, you can't be the golden at bat again.
Yeah.
No 2 players hitting it. I don't know. Because if you start doing that here, like Jim says here, you start to make more stipulations than that, and it gets real confusing, right? So just flat out, you can't hit twice in an inning.
Yeah. For me,
unnaturally twice in an inning, right? If you bat around, you can, but not artificially.
Right. For me, it would probably look something more like, instead of swapping positions, say, okay, we're going to bring Reynolds up, use our golden at bat. For Sawinski, it's Reynolds then Sawinski, and it just keeps going. And then when Reynolds comes up in the lineup the next time, it skips him. He already used his at bat.
That's another way they could do it. See,
that way the scorebook stays the same.
You could still go up and score it, but you could there could be some kind of way you could do it to say golden here and then mark him as the golden.
You put a little box around his at bat. You still mark it in his at bat.
But you got to put something in Sawinski's, like a line over top of Sawinski's with a little golden, like a star beside that, knowing that's where the golden hitter went in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good too. So you're going down this path and you realize that like there's more than this. They're going to keep making other changes. What do we got here? I've got some funny things in here too. What about you can get, like, Reynolds can go in there and hit, but whatever he does just gets credited to Sawinski. Because I'm thinking about the historic, right? So let's say he hits a double. It's a Swinsky double. He doesn't get that plate appearance. He doesn't get that double. That's ridiculous. But so is this rule. So that's why I'm throwing it out there, right? It's like that's where we are if we're already talking about this. So why not throw something like that out there where then Reynolds still gets his at-bat in the 2-hole and history's not really changed in the fact that it's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, how about this? It's an actual pinch hit. So he goes into that spot. Swinsky has to come out, and a new player has to go to the 2 spot. Like it's a double switch in a way. Like it's an actual pinch hit. If you pinch hit in baseball, he's gone.
Yeah.
That's a possibility too. This is so hard to be implemented because the rule is so dumb. This is banana ball. Jake, I'm going to tell you this. In slow pitch softball, we start with a 1-1 count.
Mm-hmm.
They limit how many home runs you can hit.
Mm-hmm.
In co-ed softball, if you walk a guy, he gets a double. In certain tournaments, a guy can wear a wristband and he doesn't count for the home runs. It's unlimited. He can hit as many as he wants. If you hit a foul ball or if you get into extra innings or a time limit, it's 1 pitch and the game's over. All these things are goofy. There's way more, right? There's more.
Yeah.
I think you'd have a hard time convincing slow pitch softball players to adopt this rule. As crazy as it is, I think you'd have a hard time saying, no, you can't do that.
Right.
You'd never get them on board. Slow pitch softball players. And yet you're going to try to put it in the major leagues?
Yeah.
It'll never happen.
It's not going to. Yeah. Listen, if they figure out a way to do it that makes logical sense, then almost any rule, if you can make logical sense on why you're doing it, what the reason is, what problem you're fixing. The thing about it is with this rule, you're never going to come up with a logical reason. It's not fixing anything that's broken.
Well, there's a reason, right? But that's it.
Logical.
It literally stops there. No, if you say the reason is to get more marquee matchups because that's what you're missing from the game and you want more eyes on it, you want to try to get that Ohtani Trout at bat, you want to try to do that more often, which by the way, if you do it 162 games a year, twice a game, then you're also
ruining it.
It's watered down now and it's not the same. It's not special anymore. Okay, so let's make some compromises here, Jake. Maybe rules that could be put in around it. So I've already mentioned like he has to come out of the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if no swap takes place and Reynolds hits and then Reynolds' spot comes up, he can stay on the bases if he's still on base, but he's out. Or he has to be pinch hit for, and then after he scores or the inning ends or whatever, Reynolds has to come out of the game. Like the actual golden hitter has to come out of the game because he was still on base when his time came up. He has to be pinch hit for in that 2-hole. He can't come off the base and somebody else goes out there for him. Like he's done.
Yeah.
Now, if you make the last out with the leadoff hitter before him, he can bat next inning. That's fine, whatever. But this is just another one that might be like, all right, he has to come out. He's gone, right? The player, I already said that one. Player being hit for. The golden boy can't be somebody who's already batted in the inning. I said that. There's just all of them. You're out if you're on the bases, but you still get to hit. Like there's, you know what I mean? There's just stupid things like that. Like this rule is just ridiculous. And it's like how I sat here and said, how can I make this? How can I predict the future to where this could be reasonable? And like, I've come up with some of the things to avoid maybe the historic element of it, which was, the one thing I was trying to attack, but it's still ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's still artificially manufacturing a moment that creating that too much. Okay. So whatever. Maybe you only get to use it if you're losing. Maybe you only get to use it if that batter has an opportunity to tie it or take the lead. So if you're down 9, you can't use a golden stinking batter here. You can't hit a 9-run homer, right? You have to be
Right.
down 4 with the bases loaded or less. That's it. Because otherwise it's not a big moment. So then you're just padding stats. You're trying to get 85 home runs from Aaron Judge. You can't do any of that. You have to be losing. It has to be huge. And you have to be within reach with that at bat in order to use it. I could see things like that being like, all right, I'll take it for that. But only that way. You know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I think it's pretty genius though. You drop in something like this, you make it sound so absolutely ridiculous. And then you come in with another dumb rule that's not quite as dumb as this, and we're okay with it because this is not as dumb as this.
Like a re-entry.
We're gonna talk about that. How about this? Nobody's talking about baseball. Now everybody's talking about baseball. Right?
Yeah.
My buddy Jared, who's the basketball coach here, texted me today. A couple days later, he's like, "Hey, golden at bat. What are your thoughts?" And I just sent him this and said, "What are your thoughts?" And all he sent back was gimmick. Right?
Yeah.
So like it's out there that everybody's kind of talking about it, and nobody was talking about baseball before it. So maybe that's all. Maybe that's all this is.
Yeah, but it's a bad talk about baseball.
Talking about it. Yeah, the question is, people are like, really? They're going to do that? And somebody has to say, well, no.
No, it's not WWE.
All right, so let's talk about a few more. Last thing here. Let's talk about some rules, because here's the way these things work, right? Hey, we've got this idea. Let's talk about it, right? And then you say this and this and that. Oh, you know what I haven't played yet today?
Because those are the rules of Sticky McSchnickens. That's why.
I had thoughts of like, I got to play this, right?
Yeah.
You guys have seen Ridiculous 6. Absolutely hilarious baseball scene. Absolutely hilarious. Anyway, as they talk through this, there's going to be some things that happen as a result of this, right? Where somebody in the room is going to say, gosh, this has to be the dumbest thing we've ever done, but can we just maybe do this thing instead?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or, hey, how could we fix this? And you're coming up with maybe some of these ideas that I've come up with, or that some of these other people have come up with that I've been listening to this week. And as a result of them trying to say, if you did this, you'd have to do this thing. And then you start saying like, hey, about this thing, maybe we just do that anyway. And then it makes it easier to do the golden guy later. Or maybe we don't ever do the golden guy still, because it's still not going to happen. But this isn't a bad idea.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and some of them are crazy. Some of them might be. But the first one, you already brought it up and you thought about it. I've thought about it. We didn't know each other were thinking about it, but we said something before. So go ahead. What's your thought on re-entry?
My thought on it is, I don't know that it needs to happen, but it wouldn't be the craziest thing. Like, it's
it's not that it needs to happen, but it stems from this.
Right. And so basically, we see defensive replacements, but like I could replace one of my best hitters in the lineup just because he's not very good at defense, but then he can still come in and hit when he comes up. Then he's got to go back in. I mean, that would be, along the lines of this golden at bat thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, we took him out for defense because he's not very good on defense, but his spot comes up in a big spot. We can still put him back in and hit. Now he's got to go back and field, if the game continues.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's not that far-fetched, I don't believe.
Yeah, I think
and it's
there's
only
a way.
Starters.
The thing about the re-entry rule is that it exists at just about every level other than the pros.
Mm-hmm.
It's even in college, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. So re-entry exists everywhere. So you're not fundamentally changing baseball when baseball all the way up has a re-entry rule. I think there's ways you can do it. I think there's maybe a way you could re-enter after a certain inning. They do that kind of stuff all the time, right? After the 7th inning, you're allowed to put that defensive guy back in. Now, you likely aren't going to pinch hit for him until then.
Right.
But then you pinch hit, and then he's able to pop right back in. The guy that he goes back in for is obviously out of the game. But it's just a simple re-entry rule that they've put in place, and now it makes a little more sense. Re-entry is only viable in spaceflight. Ron has more than root beer tonight, I think. Shared says once the golden bat is used, he replaces the DH or the pitcher has to bat. There's another great one that I'm going to bring up here. And I'm not really sure how it stems from this, but we've talked about this about 10,853 times.
Yeah. I already know where you're going.
Yeah. So anyway, how about the designated hitter amendment? Okay. And I still don't understand why this is an issue. And I am going to have to look at my notes for this because there are some specifics about this that make this a little more difficult. But hey, there's a lot of stipulations to this, and there's a lot of rules of baseball that are confusing.
Yeah,
let's not kid around. So it's not done like it has to be simple, but this one's pretty simple, right? The DH is a defensive position. That's it. If you take your DH and you put him into a position in the middle of a game, it's not like the pitcher has to bat. You could just put somebody else in the DH spot. That's my thought process here. However, I'll entertain it. The idea is the DH could switch positions with the second baseman in the 3rd inning. That's it. Currently, it's not allowed. Moving the DH off a DH would result in the team forfeiting the DH for the rest of the game. So let's say for one game, Reynolds getting a day off on the field. He's DHing. Cruz gets sick and throws up out on the field. Right? We're not going to get Cruz hurt here. He gets sick and he throws up. Okay. Reynolds moves from DH to left field. Billy Cook slides from left to center field in this scenario. Right? It's August 28th. All right. Things are happening. And Cruz is replaced in the batting order by McCutchen, who was getting a day off. And McCutchen is at the DH spot. That doesn't seem all that hard. It's all part of a double switch. It doesn't seem that hard. Kind of a double switch. Like it's really just McCutchen going in for Cruz. And then you're moving the positions around.
Yeah.
All right, let's say Joey Bart's at DH and Henry Davis is catching. Davis gets hit on the right leg by a ball in the dirt and he says he's fine. But they want to take it easy on him for the rest of the game. Okay? At the end of the inning, they can just switch Bart to catcher, Davis to DH, just like they could do a first base and a shortstop. It's no different.
Right.
So we understand with the new shift rules that it would have to happen probably at the end of the inning because now the shift rules mean that you can't move a first baseman to shortstop. You can't move a second baseman to shortstop in the middle of an inning. It can't happen. Not without a substitution. Can't just switch positions. It has to happen in the middle of an inning. Or, at the end of an inning, like in between innings. It has to happen. And then you can do whatever you want in between innings. You can just walk out there and be like, hey, he's playing. The only thing is first baseman, if you switch a first baseman, obviously you have to change the gloves.
Yeah.
Because only the guy closest to first base can wear a first base mitt. That's it. If he's wearing a first base mitt and playing another position, that's a problem. I don't know what the penalty is. That's what the baseball does a lot of things. They were like, you're not allowed to do that. They'd be like, what's the penalty? Be like, we'll talk about that later.
You're just not allowed to do it. Just don't do it.
Just don't do it.
Put a stop to it.
That's like saying, like, you can't step out of the box. Okay, what if I do? I'm going to tell you to get back in the box. Ooh. And then they just did it anyway.
You said, ooh.
Yeah. So anyway, anything else would be, like, if you had to do that in the middle of an inning where Cruz had to come out, it would be a double switch if you had to make a double switch. You know what I mean? Catchers probably be the same thing, all that stuff. So anyway, designated hitter amendment, get that done. That doesn't seem that difficult. I mean, the things, it's already difficult. You already made it so the shortstop and second baseman can't switch places.
Yeah.
Nobody on the right side of the infield can switch with the guys on the left side of the infield in the middle of an inning. Can't do it. Not without a substitution. It's wild.
That's kind of dumb.
So
That one, I missed that one when that whole thing happened.
all right, so here's the last thing I've got. And then, if you've got any more. Do you have any more?
Those were my two. Like those were the big ones in my opinion.
All right. So the last one I got is kind of more along the lines of the Manfred runner. It's a big shake. It's a huge thing, right? But we're going to get rid of the Manfred runner, but we're still going to change some things. We're still going to create. We're going to fix the Manfred runner and the golden at bat. One fell swoop. You ready? We're going to do two things. Re-entry comes back, but in a different way. When the 10th inning happens, as soon as we go into the top of the 10th inning, reset. Lineups reset, not to the beginning of the game, to the same players that are in right now, but you shift to the first batter of the lineup. Top of the lineup for both teams starting the 10th inning. Now you've got your matchups. You've got a better chance of that thing ending in the 10th or the 11th inning, but you're not messing with relief pitchers and teams wins. A guy can go out there and throw to two batters, get an easy ground ball to second base, a lazy fly ball down the right field line, and you lose the game. And he strikes out the third. You lose the game because the relief pitcher went out there and did good. But their relief pitcher did better, so you lose. That's dumb. Like, it's dumb. We did good.
Yeah.
Manfred runner's dumb.
Yep.
Ghost runner, whatever you want to call him. Automatic runner. Want to be official. But the thing is like, you got to do something better. So let's reset. Go back to the top of the order, the 10th inning. Extra innings, we start back at the top, go through your lineup. Here's the caveat here. Any players who were removed during the first 9 innings are again available. So you pinch hit for somebody in the 6th inning. You go to the extra innings and it's like, hey, you don't go shower yet. We go extras here. I might need you again.
Yeah.
Either to pinch run or pinch hit or whatever. Guy gets hurt. Why do you do that, right? Why did they do the extra inning thing in the first place? To try to limit how long guys are out there, right? Let's say you replaced your catcher. But he didn't get hurt. He just, he came out of the game because of this or that, whatever it is.
Pinch runner or something.
Pinch runner. Got hit on the hand, but turns out he's fine. Instead of making a catcher go out there and catch for, 15 innings, then, you have you have your catcher available again. You don't have to put Van Meter back there. You know what I mean? Guys are just, this to me just seems like, okay, 10th inning, we kind of reset here. The guys that are in the lineup stay in the lineup. It's not like you go back to the beginning of the game. The substitutions you've made are made, but now they can re-enter. They still can only re-enter for the guy that they came out for. Like, there's still that going on. Maybe you say, unless there's an injury, if you've used everybody, right? Yeah. Then maybe you don't do that then, just for that case. If there is an injury or there is something where you're like, we got to get this guy out of here. You know what I mean? Like, we got nobody available, but his hamstring doesn't feel great. We don't want him going out there. You should be able to replace him. You know what I mean? Something like that. They become available again. It's crazy, but not as crazy as this. But also, 10th inning, big moment. You're going to get those marquee matchups right out of the gate. You're starting right at the top of the lineup. And it's still, Jake, roster construct or lineup construction strategy to say we want your best hitters at the top, but you're not just putting them in the 7th inning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're just creating, depending on where you were at in the lineup, creating opportunities there at the top.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think? I mean,
I don't love it, but
is it better than Manfred runner and golden at bat? All right. That's all I was going for. I said, that's all I was going for.
Yeah. We talked about the Manfred runner enough last episode.
Shared says this happened the past year against the Orioles. Adley moved from DH to catcher in game, and I thought the O's put someone else at DH. They would have had to just pinch hit for the pitcher the next time. Because once you take the DH out, he's gone. So they would have just pinch hit when the DH spot came up every time. So, but yeah, I mean that's all I got, man. In general, man, the rules just aren't as crazy as we think they are when we first hear them.
Except this one.
Except this one, because of the same reason the Manfred runner that people still don't like it, right? It changes. Like, how did that guy get there? Like, he doesn't belong there. He didn't do anything to get there.
Right.
And that's the thing
they don't count it as an RBI or anything, do they?
It's not an RBI. Well, it might be an RBI. It's not a run. It's an unearned run against the pitcher.
Unearned run, yeah.
It's an unearned run. But it's still a team loss.
Yeah.
So, which is the more important thing here.
Right.
Like, we're losing because you decided you don't want to watch extra innings baseball. Some of us do. Right? And I understand. It's not just that. It's not that. It's not that he hates it. It's not all that stuff. It's also a matter of the injuries and the bullpens and saving arms and all that stuff. They're trying to get the games over early so you don't have to use Roger Holstaff and then still come right back.
I'll be honest with you. I'd probably be more accepting of a tie.
Oh.
Even though that I don't like ties. I hate ties. But it's almost like...
No, you run out of pitchers, you forfeit. Maybe if your starter would have went 8, you wouldn't have this problem. There's your starter incentive.
Yeah.
Like, sorry. I mean, I just do it that way. Ron says, I like extras live, not so much on TV. That's fair.
Turn channel. Go to bed.
Also true, but if you want to see through the rest of the game, I understand that.
Right. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know, because I'm also a guy who says the NFL should adopt the college overtime rules.
Yeah.
I guess, you know what I mean?
But there's nowhere outside of backyard baseball that you just inherit a runner at second.
Right. Yeah, that's the other thing. We were talking about this. Like, it's like these guys are in the backyard when they're 10, 11 years old. And we used to play tennis ball. This was a game that me and Jake used to play. We'd go down to the Little League field. And it's just be me and him. So it's basically pitch and hit. And we'd each have our team just trying to figure something out. And we would hit a ball. And then we would look at where it goes and say, all right, that's going to be a single to left field. But we gave ourselves, this is like, you know, you're kids, you're going down the ball field.
Yeah.
We gave ourselves one great play per inning, defensive. And if we hit a ball in the gap, you could say, I'm calling my great play here. Center fielder made a diving play. That's an out. And it's like, oh, crap. You know what I mean? So then, okay, well, then what would happen with the runners and all that stuff? Okay. And I think there was ways you could use your great play on offense too. If there was a ground ball to short, no. If there was a ground ball to short, we could say my dude is Sonic the Hedgehog. He beat it out. You know what I mean? Like, that's my great play. But like, that's what this is. It's like wiffle ball, tennis ball type stuff.
Yeah.
Where you're artificially manufacturing certain things. It's kind of like we all went out in the backyard after Jim Edmonds made that catch. And we would throw the ball up in the air, or, you know, I would throw it. You'd go take it off running. You'd lay out like Jim Edmonds and you'd make the Jim Edmonds catch. And then there was a time, you know, when you're however old we were when he made that catch, where you're like, dude, I think I could make that catch. Because it was artificially manufactured and you knew that's exactly what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Try reacting in the middle of a game and actually going out and making that play. Like, it's entirely different. And it's not crazy when you say, all right, this guy's going to try a 900 and then he hits a 900 and people go nuts. And I'm like, you just told me you were going to do it. I'm not that impressed. You wouldn't have tried it if you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is artificially manufactured. It's not baseball, Jake.
I agree.
It's not baseball.
I'm with you.
And as much as the pitch clock wasn't, in hindsight, you could see it happen. We could talk about the challenge system too, the automatic strike zone. You know, I don't like it for every pitch, but man, the challenge system is fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it does get it right.
It's starting to make more logical sense.
Yep. I don't know. Here's the thing, guys. Never coming into place. It is a fun discussion, though. It's also fun to kind of be the old man saying, slow down, this is a neighborhood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because those are the rules of Sticky McSnickens. That's why.
Dang it, Bobby.
All right, let's get out of here, Jake.
Go with that.
Hey, guys, tomorrow.
Friday is Hawaiian Shirt Day. So, you know, if you want to, go ahead and wear a Hawaiian shirt and jeans.
Thanks, guys. For those of you who have not subscribed to the show, please take the time to do that now. This increases the chance that we see you here for the next show. Winter meetings begin on Sunday. Let's go Bucks.
Let's go Bucks.
Thanks for listening to my dad and Uncle Jake on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bridge2Buctober. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when new episodes are released. Clear the deck, cannonball coming, and let's go Bucks!